Okay, so this is the number guessing game, and I will be walking us through it. So first off here, I wrote a little instructions because as I was writing this and finishing it, I was having some people play it, and I was realizing that a lot of people just did not understand. So I just wrote some instructions, and I have that in a function by itself, and I just have it system pause, system clear. That's the first function that's called, obviously why it's here. Okay, so before I continue, I'll explain a little bit about what I have in here. I have the main function being initialized in the public section. Sorry, I was blanking. In the public area, so that I can call main from my other functions while I keep it below everything else. Ugh. Sorry, I'm a little beat, so if you hear me yawn, I do apologize. Okay, so after that, I have two arrays. They are both the size of 4. One is labeled random array, and the other one is labeled input array. If they don't obviously tell you what they do, random array is going to be the array that's filled with the 4-digit random number, and input array is going to be filled with the user's input. Okay, so after that I have 4 characters labeled first, second, third, and fourth, sorry. And those are just going to be used for the input, and I'll go over that when we get to that. And then I have 4 booleans checking the 4 inputs. Check 1, check 2, check 3, check 4. Those are set to false off the bat and will be used for checking to see if numbers are matching. Okay, after that I have a win condition, that's an integer, and a counter, that's an integer. They're both set to 0. And now I will get into the actual meat of the program. Okay, so the random number was generated here, 7582. That was done through a random num function. In here, I have local integers, first rand, second rand, third rand, fourth rand, and I set srand time to null so that it's truly random every time. And then I take all of the integers, first rand, second rand, third rand, fourth rand, and I put them in a do loop. The first rand is not in a do loop as it is the first one, but all of the rest of them are, and I'll explain why. So I'm making all of these do the same thing. First rand is going to do the same thing as second rand, third rand, fourth rand. What they are doing is I'm making it equal a random function, random built-in Visual Studio function, modulo 10, in order to get a number that is between 0 and 9. And now, why the rest are in do loops and first is not, is to ensure that they do not equal the same as the previously selected numbers. So the do loops, they build to become more complex as you go. But for example, the second rand, I have it doing it while second rand equals first rand. Just so if the second random number selected is the same as the first random number, it continues to do that until it is not. And then that continues down and builds up for the third, so that third random is not equal to the same as the second random or the first random, and so on, so on. Okay, so after that, after it goes through all the do loops, I set them to the position in the random array. First rand is position 0 and goes on. Okay. So now I got the input. Let's just put random numbers here. And also the random numbers, this in a serious go would be hidden. But means that I need to show you certain features and I don't want to spend time here just thinking quietly, I left it on so that when it comes to time I can just put the number in. Okay, so I put the input in and attempt 1, the counter, the integer counter that I talked about earlier, goes up once an input is put in. The subtraction here is in there because one of these numbers, which it's the 8, is in the random number array. I will go over that. Well, yeah, I'll go over that now, actually. Okay, so I put a... Sorry, I'm blanking. It's been a little bit since I've done this, or even looked at this. I do apologize. Okay, so I have a check function. The check function has 4 local variables: check 1, check 2, check 3, check 4. I'm going to have a lot of that in this program as it's just easier to label them like that. Now, in here, I have a check 1, and all of them do the same thing except the last variable in this. I make it equal to count rand array plus 4, and then since I'm using the character, I was having some issues with getting it to have the right value. So I subtracted the ASCII value, so I put first minus 48, as that is the value that I came to conclusion that was being added onto it through looking at the table and deduction. So I subtract all of these by 48 in any time that I have to use characters. So what that's doing is it's taking the array, the rand array, and it's going through it. It's going through to the 4th position, checking for the first variable, minus 48. So it's checking for whatever I input. And if that's in there, it is going to give me, it's going to make check 1 equal 1. Or any of the others, as this is the same equation for all of them. I have check 1 equaling that, check 2 equaling that, except for first is subbed out for second, and so on and so on. So if that number is the same as another number, if my input is the same as a number in the random array, it is going to equal 1. If it is not, it will equal 0. So I have 4 if loops, making it so that if check 1 equals 1, the Boolean I told you about earlier, check 1, will equal true. And that goes through all of them doing the same thing. Okay, so obviously check 1 was true, as the 8 here is in the random array. The rest of the checks were 0. So in the spot check, which is where I check exactly how correct it was, I have local variable this is a void function, by the way. I have two local variables, a plus and a minus. They are both integers that equal 0 currently. So in here, I have 4 if loops with if loops inside of them. Each if loop is checking to see if the check boolean for the respected number is true. If it is, it goes inside of it, and I have an if-else loop in every one of them. So the if is checking to see if the input array location is the same as the random array location. If it is, it takes the plus integer and it adds it by 1, which would then, in terms, print a plus here that gets placed later on in my code. But that is what it would do. It would place a plus here instead of this minus. But the reason there is a minus here is I have an else if statement after that if statement, saying if input array 0, because we're checking the first position in this input, equals random array 1, and then I have ORs in there saying if it equals random array 2, random array 3, random array, yeah, just 3, because, yeah. It adds a minus, which then is why the minus is here. Now, why does it print this? I have two strings locally declared in this function. I have a plus string and a minus string. The plus string is going to be a plus symbol. The minus string is going to be a subtraction symbol. So, here is also where I write the attempt in here to get that to print. So I have a cout attempt, put counter in there, and there it is. Now, in order to print the pluses and the minuses, do apologize, I'm yawning. In order to print that, I have a for loop for each of them. Now in this for loop I have integer I equaling 0, and if I is less than plus, it goes up by 1. So inside of that I have cout plus. So it's going to go through and print a plus for the size of pluses there are. Hence why I had them adding together in the check above, the if loops checking the booleans, and then the if loop inside of that checking to see where they were in the array, and all that. That is why it is being added there, so that it goes through it the proper amount of times and prints it the proper amount of times. Now, it does the same thing for minus. Now after that, I have my win condition equaling my pluses. So, in here, what's going on is win condition needs to, I do apologize, 1 second. Yes, okay, so that just sets it to the amount of pluses. That is going to go up as the pluses go up. Now in the main function, I have calls to all of my other functions in here, but along with that I also have a do while loop. In that do while loop I have 3 of my functions: the input function, check function, and spot check function. Functions that are not in that are instructions and random num. So this do while loop says while the win condition does not equal 4, so as long as there's not 4 pluses, it will continue. And while there is 4 pluses, it prints out, congratulations, you win. It took you blah, blah, blah. And then it gives a replay function. I will demonstrate that right now. 7, 5, 8, 2. 4 pluses, congratulations, you win. It took you 2 times. Now to demonstrate the replay function, I shall go back and press that. Oh, I hit F2 by accident. Okay, there. Replay. Takes you all the way back to the beginning, all of that. New random number. So, what that does is I have an integer selection locally declared. It's a 0. And it has a C out with the prompt. And then I take a C in. And I'm looking for the selection here. And I have a switch statement. So if switch is 1, which was quit, it clears the system and it breaks. Then you just have to close out. Now if case 2, the win condition goes back to 0, the counter goes back to 0, clears the system, and it goes back to main. The reason they have to go back to 0 is otherwise it's just going to say that you won again right away. So I zeroed them out. Now the default is that's not a correct option, please try again. Then it goes back into the replay function and breaks. That's if you put anything other than 1 or 2 inside of the input for the switch statement. Now, to show you what happens if you put anything other than a correct number in here. Let's just put high. I hit enter. It wasn't 4 things, so it didn't take it yet. So I'll put 2 more characters in, and then I'll hit enter. High 43 is not a correct variable. Just to show you that it works if you don't hit enter. There you go. Now, what happens if you put 2 of the same number? Not valid. 2, 1, let's say you go more than 4. It takes the first 4. Now, it's not going to tell you that you did that, and it just adds to the confusion and, lets you stumble upon your own stuff. So, what didn't I check yet? I believe that's checking all of the wrong things. Yeah, that should be checking all of that. So now let's show you what it's like to get some positions correct. 2. Oh. I don't know what that is or why it's doing that. I think it's because of the longer character above carried it down and so on and so on. Okay. Now it's a little broken. Huh. Interesting. I don't know how I managed to break it, but I broke it, so that's the thing. Okay, well, I don't know why I did that, considering the fact it did not end. I did test this prior, and it did work completely correct. That's interesting. Okay. Well, you know, that's programming. Sometimes you break your own stuff and you gotta go back through and search through it, even though you thought you had it working completely fine. So I'm sure that would be a semi-easy fix once I found out where in the code it was messed up. So okay, well, that was my program, and that's rather interesting that it broke still. I'm still a little caught up on that. I wonder why it's doing that. It's one of two reasons. It's either thinking that the character I'm inputting is the same as the previous character, or it's thinking that the character that I'm inputting is not within the ASCII range of 0 to 9. Like I said, I think that is definitely because of this up here. How I put 5 in, as I do not have a barrier to protect against 5. It kind of just let it go and didn't take into consideration. So let's test something here. 1, 3, 4. Huh. It's interesting. 7, 4, 2, 3. Huh. Okay. Well, yeah, that was definitely it. It was carrying down. It managed to change the random number though, so I don't know how, but it did. So let's 3, 2, 7, 4. No, it's not a valid number. 7, 4, 3, 2. I don't know. This program is all jammed up now that I screwed with that a bit. So my apologies on that, but hey, at least you got to see something screw up. That makes no sense to me. If I just keep putting 7, 4, 3. Wow, that baffles me. Huh. Okay, yeah, well, I'll fix that at some point, but yeah, this is my explanation. I hope you enjoyed it, other than the bug in here that I had no clue was here. Yeah. So this was Number Guessing by Scott Miller, and I shall fix this at some point. Have a good one.